E.N.D here. E.N.D here. With the release of Zendikar Rising, which is the fall standard set, 4 sets will rotate out. Guilds of Ravnica, Ravnica Legions, War of the Spark, and Core Set 2020. These 4 sets have heavily contributed a good number of strong cards to the standard metagame. Even at one point in time, standard metagame was shaped by cards from these sets. But which are the top 15 cards that will not miss from these 4 sets? Here I'm going to talk about cards that were heavily played in standard top decks, and we will not see them played anymore after the rotation. Obviously, I do recognize these cards as strong and still legal in other formats like Modern, Pioneer, Commander, etc, unless they get banned. Before starting our top 15, I have one honorable mention. Shocklands. As soon as Guilds of Ravnica was released and subsequently Ravnica Legions, Shocklands became staple in standard. Every deck excluding monocolor had Shocklands, and therefore no one can argue how strong these cards were in standard, and therefore some players will not miss them. Let's start. In 15th position, Field of the Dead. This card from Core Set 2020 dominated standard for a whole 2 months until eventually got banned. But sure, no other standard player wants to face anymore a horde of zombies generated by this card. In 14th position, Pelt Collector, the perfect 1-drop green creature. If you didn't get rid of Pelt Collector as soon as possible, it would become a massive strong creature, thanks to his abilities to add +1/+1 counters based on creatures entering or leaving the battlefield. In 13th position, Absorb, one of the best counter spells during this period. Apart from countering any spell, the user will also get 3 life, and those 3 life sometimes meant a game saver. In 12th position, Mayhem Devil, one of the key cards in the Sacrifice deck. When Skaldrim Familiar and Witch Oven combo became a big thing in standard, this creature, which also paired perfectly with Fabled Passage, another Throne of Eldraine card, could easily wipe out your board. In 11th position, Arboreal Grazer, a mere common card from War of the Spark. But what an advantage was giving this card to RAM players. This 1 green drop creature could easily multiply your lands. In 10th position, Thought Erasure. How many winning conditions were discarded because of this card? I even know players that conceded as soon as Thought Erasure was casted. In 9th position, Agent of Treachery. I would have put this creature in a higher position if it wasn't banned. At release, Agent of Treachery wasn't doing anything in standard, but with Talos Beyond Dead and especially the release of Ikoria, this creature became too powerful when combined with Tassa, Giruda, Winota, and Luca. How many permanents did Agent of Treachery stole from your battlefield? In 18th position, Runaway Steamkin, one of the key cards in the RDW, Red Deck Win. A perfect enabler for a deck that could easily win the game with just 1 land in hand. Combined with Fervent Champion, Infuriate and Embercleave, you could easily win the game on turn 3. In 7th position, Defining Clarion, the perfect lifesaver for certain decks. It could easily wipe out the board and also in a late game give your creatures lifelink to gain some life enough to win the game. In 6th position, Hydroid Crisis, one of the most powerful creatures that came out from the Ravnica Legion set. This creature could do everything. Give you life, give you cards, and also you had a powerful flying creature. Games were won thanks to Hydroid Crisis. In 5th position, Nissa Who Shakes the World, one of the 36 Planeswalkers from War of the Spark. Nissa was a very powerful Planeswalker, especially in the mono-green ramp decks. It could easily give you a 3/3 Vigilance land, which a forest could tap for an extra green mana. It was one of the enablers to cast Ugin the Spirit Dragon on turn 4. In 4th position, Narset Parter of Waves, an uncommon Planeswalker and second Planeswalker in this list from War of the Spark. It was a very powerful Planeswalker because it could tutor for a non-creature, non-land spell, which usually it was the card that you needed. Apart from this ability, it restricted opponents to draw more than 1 card each turn. In 3rd position, Wilderness Reclamation, a 4-drop enchantment which makes you wonder who the heck designed this card. Untapping your lands at the end of your turn, it meant for certain decks the perfect OP card. Ramp decks loved this card, Blue-Green Control loved this card, the rest hated it. It wasn't a surprise that tournaments were dominated by Wilderness Reclamation, and that's why it was eventually banned. In second position, Growth Spiral. In the history of Magic the Gathering standard tournaments, there wasn't a card which had 32 copies in the top 8 decks. Neither Jace the Mind Scalper had this record until Growth Spiral. Yes, this meant that every deck in the top 8 had a playset of the card. I wonder why it wasn't banned before. In first position, the one and only Teferi Time Reveler. In my opinion, the most powerful planeswalker from War of the Spark. Teferi was the perfect spell to slow the game. Yes, usually died the next turn, but the damage was done. Returning a creature to your opponent's hand, limit opponents from casting instant and flash cards, it was really a thorn in your side. Dominated standard for a long time until it was finally banned, makes me wonder why ban Teferi 6 weeks before rotation and not before. So this was my top 15 cards that I will not miss out of Standard Rotation 2020. Leave me a comment below which card you will not miss out of these 4 sets, and subscribe to my channel for more and more interesting videos about Magic the Gathering and the collectible world.